To be clear, I work for a Harley-Davidson dealership, not the motor company. Harley has not asked me to do this video, nor did they assist with any of my research, production, or editing in any way. My words are my own. Let me ask you something. Do you prefer to write letters instead of sending emails? When you're traveling, is your go-to to get you there looking at a map, or are you on Google Maps? Is your kitchen pantry full of actual real food because you tend to cook more at home than you do going out? Then you, my friend, are what we consider old school, which is pretty cool in my book. But what about companies? Can they be old school too? There's one retail establishment that immediately comes to my mind, and that is the Vermont Country Store. They pride themselves on being purveyors of the practical and the hard to find. That being said, they do have a website, they can ship overnight to you, and they accept all major credit cards and PayPal. So obviously, companies have to change with the times. If they don't, they run the very real risk of being run out of business. Looking at you, Sears, Kmart, and Blockbuster. Although companies that reinvent or rebrand themselves often come under quite harsh criticism. Think of New Coke and the more recent We NYC Heart. Oh, and remember when Radio Shack decided to change their name to The Shack in 2009? Yeah, probably not. Except their name, that was all the electronic retailer changed. Their offerings remained the same, and eventually they would declare bankruptcy in 2015 and then again in 2017. Clearly, rebranding and coming up with something new to offer your customers is a must in order to survive. What's an iconic company within the motorcycle industry that has 120 years under their belt to do? Especially since more and more kids are turning away from this to this and this. Those of you who are returning to my channel already know that my name is Dawn, aka Irish Bob's sister, and I've worked at 3 different Harley-Davidson dealerships over the last 15 years. And in that time, I've already seen a lot of changes. Eric Buell, quite a few number of bikes have come and gone, 2 new engines, and a lot of rider safety enhancements. Whether you are new to my channel or you are returning, you may not know that my story with Harley goes beyond these 15 years. It goes back to the dark days of AMF and Harley-Davidson. Let's do a quick history of the motor company. 1901, Bill Harley draws up a schematic for a 116cc engine that fits in a bicycle frame. 1903, the motor company is born with Model 1, a frame made to loop around a more powerful 167cc single-cylinder engine that will become an icon. 1909, Harley and the Davidsons come up with the V-twin motor. 1917, Harley-Davidson goes to war. 1929 to 1939, the stock market crash and ensuing depression forces the motor company to manufacture power plants in order to survive. They also come up with the Cervi-car and knucklehead engine. 1941 to 45, Harley goes to war again, producing WLA motorcycles specifically for the U.S. military with a 45 cubic inch engine. 1948 to 1966, the Moco tries their hand at a number of smaller motorcycles, the Hummer, Sport Cycle, Amarachi, and the Topper. Post-World War II also sees those returning soldiers, sailors, Marines, and the newly minted Air Force buy the bikes that they used in wartime on the cheap. They chop off fenders and the frame to make the bikes lighter and lower. Except those servicemen wanted more power, not the cuteness of a 2-stroke motor. So Harley ditches the lightweight bikes and instead comes up with the shovelhead engine to satisfy the masses. 1943, Bill Harley dies. 1950, Arthur Davidson dies. And during their 50th anniversary year, Harley's only major competitor in the US also dies. 1965, and Harley-Davidson goes public because they are strapped for cash thanks in part to the Japanese bikes that are flooding the US market. However, conglomerate corporations were looking to gobble up smaller businesses, take what they could make, and kill it off. Facing the real possibility of being swallowed up or having to declare bankruptcy, the motor company instead shifted gears and agreed to be acquired by American Machine and Foundry, otherwise known as AMF. That was January 1969, and I was barely 6 months old. Growing up in Northern California in the 1970s, I remember hearing quite a few family members and their friends say, "I'd rather push a Harley than ride a Honda." Except that's exactly what they were doing. They were having to push their AMF Harleys because of AMF's quantity over quality campaign. That made the bikes unreliable, and that really caused a dip in sales. In the meantime, Honda, Suzuki, Kawasaki, and Yamaha are all building some pretty good bikes that were less expensive, and I think this is the key, they were marketing their bikes to people who didn't already ride. While it would have been nice for Harley-Davidson to remain old school, we can see now that it just wasn't going to happen. Say what you will about AMF bikes, I believe that without the sporting good company coming in to rescue Harley, I would be leading a pretty boring life right about now. Most likely, you know what happens next. In 1981, when AMF had practically ridden Harley-Davidson into the ground, a group of 13 investors, including Von Beals and Willie G. Davidson, buy back Harley from American Machine and Foundry for $75 million, and the Eagle soars alone. From there, the MoCo launches improved quality control with a just-in-time inventory management system. The FXR is born, the Harley Owners Group, or H.O.G, is formed, and the Evolution engine roars to life. 1983 also sees Harley-Davidson ask then U.S. President Ronald Reagan for tariffs against those Japanese bikes that are still their biggest threat. And they get it. This gives them time to get their act together, which they do, and by 1987 they are back on the stock exchange under the moniker of H.O.G. The late 80s until the early 2000s are all pretty good growth years for Harley-Davidson. Mainly because they've gone back to the old school ways with some new twists. The Softail is developed, a bike that has the look of a hardtail but has the suspension hidden underneath, giving it a smoother ride. In 1988, Harley brings back the Springer front end. Sales of genuine parts and accessories and motor clothes increase greatly. And they acquired Buell Motorcycle Company. The pair began making sport bikes together in an attempt to attract newer riders. But then what happened? How in the world did we go from the lion's share to the lion's scraps? My personal opinion, not enough attention was given to developing new ways of doing things to attract new riders, to market themselves to people who didn't ride. By the time I start working for Harley-Davidson dealerships in 2008, we are in another economic downturn.
But nobody knows if the stock is going to go up, down, sideways, or in fucking circles.
And the majority of kids and young adults would rather be playing video games inside rather than playing outside with their friends, in real life, in the real world. Kids today, mine included, are all too comfortable to just sit there and watch the world go by. Of course, my kids are now adults, but still they prefer the comfort of the cage of their car or truck rather than be all out there immersed in the motorcycling universe.
So I start to say, well, there's this guy who's in a kind of virtual world, and he finds out that there's a real world, and he's really questioning what's real and not real, and he really wants to know what's real. The young girl was like, why? And she was like, who cares if it's real? And I was like, what, you don't care if it's real? And she was like, no.
Plus, learning to ride is hard. It requires you to go to a weekend basic rider's course to get the M endorsement on your license.
Oh, don't worry. There are plenty of hours in the day. And of course I'll have the weekend.
What is a weekend?
And this is at a time when kids aren't even getting driver's licenses, let alone motorcycle licenses. Or you can find a friend that already knows how to ride, somehow carve up enough time for the two of you to get some actual riding experience under your belt, and then go down and see the lovely folks at the DMV and test in front of them. Not to mention, the majority of the motorcycles out there are true motorcycles, meaning that they are a manual shift. So not only do these kids have to learn the rules of the road, learn how to ride a bike, they also have to learn the friction zone, where the clutch engages the transmission, one is down and 4 or 5 are up, and how to deliver the right amount of gas to the throttle to keep the engine from stalling, but not too much to where the bike is going to send you off into a ditch. A quick reminder that if you are new to the sport or are curious about motorcycling and are experiencing any sort of difficulties, I'm here to help. I have Irish Bob's Motorcycle Life, my group on Facebook, my SKILLSHARE class, and my blog. They're both on my website, irishbobsister.com. And if you would like more of an advanced one-on-one sort of communication, that you want to go from beginner to biker, I'd be happy to work with you to be your motorcycle mentor and life coach. But for now, back to the issue at hand. Clearly, the old school ways are no longer going to work for Harley. They can no longer rely on having the lion's share of the market. Neither can Indian, Ducati, Suzuki, Triumph, any of them. It's something that all the motorcycle manufacturers are going to have to work on together. That's because overall, there was a drop in motorcycle sales in the years leading up to COVID.
So I really liked what you said about thinking about your brand. It's fascinating because it's such an iconic brand. But when I think about someone who rides a Harley, it's usually a man and he's white and he's like in his 50s. And I was wondering, how do you guys think about the future and like what is Harley going to look like for the new generation?
It's a great question.
Over the last 3 years, thanks in large part to an influx of cash and time to spend, motorcycle sales were up initially. I think it was also part of the mass exodus. A lot of people were working from home and or just said fuck it to their employer and decided to go off and do their own thing. But then tariffs, again, and supply chain issues quickly put a dampener on the fun,
raising the cost of a bike by about $2,200. The company calls its decision to make more bikes abroad its only sustainable option.
Harley-Davidson is using that as an excuse.
Tonight, some top Republicans warn it's the president's tariffs that have created the problem.
Just look at what Republican Senator Ben Sasse said in a statement. The problem isn't that Harley is unpatriotic. He said it's that tariffs are stupid.
With demand far outweighing the availability of bikes as well as ATVs, UTVs, snowmobiles, cars, trucks, you get the point. Now, with the world possibly poised to swing back the other way, with inflation and the war between Russia and Ukraine, plus a few other factors, we've seen Harley make strides to protect itself under new leadership with CEO Jochen Zeitz. He initially started with the rewire and then the hardwire strategy, which, if you've read his book, The Breakthrough Challenge, you'll know these plans are nothing new to the co-founder and co-chairman of the B Team. Since taking over as Harley's CEO, Jochen has spun off Livewire into its own division. That's Harley's electric motorcycle. He's implemented HD Marketplace, the #1 site for buying and selling pre-owned Harley-Davidson motorcycles. The motor company has entered the adventure touring market with the Pan America. Harley has also entered the sport bike market with the Sportster S and Nightster Special. And now we also have these certified pre-owned Harley-Davidson motorcycles, bikes that have passed an extensive 110-point inspection and are road ready right off the showroom floor. But it's also about the brand, not just the motorcycles. Right from Harley-Davidson's Our Company webpage, which you can find on their website h-d.com. Jochen says, The iconic Barton Shield is one of the most recognized logos in the world, and unlike any of our competitors, we have the opportunity to evolve our lifestyle brand to new heights if we rigorously pursue and execute on our strategy in the coming years. With innovation and imagination pushing that desirability of both motorcycles as well as the brand, it seems as if Harley finally gets it. Getting new people into the sport by beginning that attraction with something as simple as a logo. Their latest offering, HD Collections, is a clothing line that has Harley entering the high-end fashion world. Louise Golden, the designer behind the new line of clothing, is clearly not going after those bikers who are already riding, not to mention who are aging out. No, both she and the motor company are going after a much younger demographic. A new American rebel who rides around on city bikes. That's right. It's about a real shot at the fashion world on runways and at Fashion Week.
All right, everyone, gird your loins.
And I know for a fact that the motor company is not done. There is something very new and exciting on the horizon that's coming this way. But I can't talk about it just yet. So that's my plug to say to you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and click that bell to be notified when I upload new content. Of course, you'll also want to subscribe to Harley-Davidson's YouTube channel. I'll put the link down below if you're not there already, because of course, they'll announce it first. In short, the motor company is once again rebelling against the norm, going a new way while still maintaining a link to the past. And if their goal of being the most desired brand in the world, being more than just motorcycles, and that brings new riders and new lifeblood to our culture, then that works for me. To be clear, I work for a Harley-Davidson dealership, not the motor company, although that would be my dream job. Harley has not asked me to do this video, nor did they assist with any of my research, production, or editing in any way. My words are my own. What are your thoughts about getting new people into the sport of motorcycling? I'd love to hear what you have to say, so be sure and drop me a comment down below and let me know. And until next time, guys and gals, please, it is my hope for you that you stay safe, be kind to one another, especially if they are trying out something new, ride when you can, and have fun.